Grease is a 1978 musical romantic comedy that's based on the 1971 musical of the same name. It was directed by Randall Kleiser in his theatrical film debut. The movie depicts the lives of greaser Danny Zuko and Australian transfer student Sandy Olsen, who develop a fond attraction for each other. John Travolta plays Danny, and Olivia Newton-John plays Sandy. It was released on June 16, 1978, and it was both a critical and commercial success, becoming the highest-grossing musical film ever at the time. Its soundtrack was the second best-selling album of the year in the United States in 1978, and that was just behind the soundtrack for the 1977 blockbuster Saturday Night Fever, which Travolta also starred in. The director took numerous liberties with the original source material, mostly in the fact that he moved the setting from an urban Chicago setting to a more suburban locale, reflecting his own teenage years at Radnor High School in the suburbs of Philadelphia. He had very little control over the musical aspects of the film, though. After the success of the first movie, the film was supposed to have 3 sequels. However, after Grease 2 from 1982 bombed at the box office, those plans were canceled. Most of the principal cast were well past their high school years that they portray in the film. When filming began in June of 1977, Stockard Channing was 33. Michael Tucci was 31. Jamie Donnelly was 30. Annette Charles was 29. Olivia Newton-John was 28. Jeff Conaway was 26. John Travolta was one of the young ones at 23, with the youngest being Lorenzo Lamas, who was 19. When Olivia Newton-John was cast in her role as Sandy, her character's background had to be changed to accommodate Newton-John's background. In the original Broadway musical, Sandy was an all-American girl, and her last name was Dombrowski. In the movie version, she became Sandy Olsen from Australia. But before Olivia Newton-John took this role as Sandy Olsen, she insisted on a screen test for herself. She was concerned that she didn't have the acting skills to pull this role off, and that she would look too old to be a high school student. Her song, Hopelessly Devoted to You, was written and recorded after the movie wrapped. Her contract for the film stipulated that she should have a solo song, but nobody had any ideas for the song for her character until Olivia's producer, John Farrar, came up with Hopelessly Devoted to You halfway through the shoot. The director wasn't wholly convinced by the song at first, and he had to come up with an entirely different scene for it to fit into. It was eventually filmed and recorded after the movie had completely wrapped, and it went on to earn the film's only Oscar nomination. In the stage play, the song Look at Me, I'm Sandra Dee had a reference in it to Sal Mineo, who had been murdered in 1976. For the movie, the lyric was changed to reference Elvis Presley, who ironically died the same day that scene was filmed. The dance contest was filmed during the summer when school was closed. The gym had no air conditioning in it, and the doors had to be kept closed to control the lighting and the sound, so the building became stifling hot. On more than one occasion, some of the extras had to be taken out due to heat-related illnesses. The final musical scene, and probably the highlight of the movie, with You're the One That I Want, was filmed with the help of a traveling carnival. The director decided the next day that he didn't get all the shots that he needed. He needed some shots for close-ups. But by then, the carnival had left town. So set decorators were called in to build replica backgrounds that matched the carnival rides for the close-ups. John Travolta started rehearsals for this movie just 4 days after he completed filming for Saturday Night Fever. Having 2 mega-hit movies in a row made it really difficult for him to return to honor his contract with Welcome Back, Kotter. But he went on to fulfill that contract, albeit in a reduced presence, and then he eventually left the show to pursue a movie career full-time. The director shot the scene of Kenickie and Rizzo, played by Stockard Channing, getting into a heated argument, which explained their attitude towards each other in the diner scene where Rizzo threw the malt at Kenickie. But this fight scene was cut because it didn't match the tone of the rest of the movie. It was much grittier, and the crew members thought it looked like something straight out of a Martin Scorsese movie. Now, the film dances around the censors quite a bit, and you have to really listen hard and watch closely to catch some of the subtle sexual meanings that are portrayed in the film. The cling wrap that Danny waves around and throws around the car is a symbol for prophylactics that men used in the 1950s. They would wrap themselves in saran wrap, thinking that that was an effective way to prevent pregnancy. John Travolta was told not to do anything sexual with that cellophane in the number he did. They wanted the symbolism to be really subtle to avoid an R rating. But Travolta disobeyed this, and he actually rubs his crotch with the cling wrap in the number anyway. This goes on to make it into the final cut of the movie. Originally, Sandy was not supposed to participate in the dance contest at all. She was supposed to be sidetracked and subdued by Sonny before the contest ever started. But Olivia Newton-John was anxious to do some dancing in the movie, even though she was not a professionally trained dancer like John Travolta was. So she convinced the director to let her dance with Danny in the contest for a few minutes, and then for Sonny to jump in a few minutes later. The movie was so popular during its release that some cinemas were playing the film literally back to back to meet the demand. However, they couldn't turn over the audience quick enough. By the time the last viewers to enter the screening took their seats, the movie had already started and was at least partway through. This increased the demand for viewings even more, as people had to attend the cinemas several times in order to try to catch the whole movie. During the Grease Lightning musical number, Jeff Conaway was accidentally dropped. This ended up hurting his back, and they prescribed some pretty strong painkillers for him at the time. Eventually, he went on to start abusing prescription drugs, and his drug addiction just spiraled out of control most of his life, until he eventually died in 2011 at the age of 60. He didn't die from a drug overdose, but he died from pneumonia that was related to him aspirating his stomach contents during a stupor he was in. One other little point of trivia with Jeff Conaway is that he insisted on applying the hickeys that Stockard Channing had in the film. They are completely visible in the diner scene, and those weren't makeup at all. They were ones that Jeff actually put on her neck. In the final scene, where Olivia Newton-John sings "You're the One That I Want," she has on a pair of pants that are so skin tight she can barely move. They had constant problems with the zippers breaking up her backside. They eventually had to sew her into those pants. They sewed her into those pants every morning for a week. She says that she had to be very careful about what she ate and drank during the day so that she wouldn't blow them out. She called it an excruciating experience. You couple that with 106-degree temperatures, that made that final carnival scene pretty miserable for Olivia Newton-John. But it's probably one of the most adored scenes in the movie by the audience. She definitely turns her sex appeal on during her romp around the carnival. Grease received mostly positive reviews from the film critics, and it's considered by many as one of the best films from 1978. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.